Lyra stood quietly in the center of the stone circle. The sky above her was dark and heavy with storm clouds. Her thin silver dress moved gently in the wind, but her feet were still. Her hands were tied in front of her with golden ropes that shimmered under the weak sun. Around her stood the elders of her village, their faces hard and silent. They had chosen her to be the bride of General Vark, the warlord of the mountains. It was a great honor, they said. But her heart felt heavy. Lyra did not want this marriage. She had heard the stories how the warlord crushed enemies with his bare hands, how he punished his wives, how none of them ever smiled again. But no one cared about her wishes. She was born to serve her tribe. And now they offered her like a gift. Her mother stood far in the back, eyes red, mouth tight. She wanted to cry, but she knew it was dangerous to show weakness. The warlord's guards stood nearby, their armor dark and sharp like knives. They watched Lyra like she might run up in with her hands bound. A strange noise rolled into the square. Everyone turned to look. An old transport truck came down the path, its wheels rumbling across the stones. It was not an alien machine. It was human. And the man behind the wheel was also human. He had a rough beard, short brown hair, and tired eyes. His name was Eli, a contract driver working jobs between alien villages. He said little, took his pay, and moved on. No one knew his full story, but many said he had lost everything in the war. Eli stopped the truck at the edge of the circle. One of the guards waved him down. Take her to the mountain palace. The guard said, don't talk to her. Eli looked at the girl in the silver dress and nodded. He didn't ask questions. He just opened the back of the truck. Lyra was pushed inside and sat on the cold metal floor. 2 guards climbed in. With her, their guns across their laps, Eli looked at her once through the mirror. She looked back, eyes full of fear, but also something else. Something stronger, something brave. The truck began to move. The road out of the village was rough, full of dust and sharp rocks. Lyra didn't say a word at first. She just watched the trees pass by. But after an hour, she leaned forward and whispered, "Human." She said softly, "Can you help me?" Guards shifted, one of them growling. "Quiet," he barked. "No talking." Eli didn't reply. But her voice stayed in his head. Could he help her? Was it his business? She was just a passenger, a job, a delivery. But something about her voice made it hard to forget. As they climbed into the mountains, the wind grew colder. Dark clouds rolled over the peaks. Thunder cracked in the distance. Lyra tried again, whispering lower this time. "If you deliver me, he will kill me," she said. "He kills his wives, one by one." Eli's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He knew the stories too. He had heard them in the bars, on the space stations. General Vark was not a man. He was a beast in armor. And this girl, she was too small, too soft to survive that place. Still, Eli said nothing. He had rules. No feelings, no questions, no problems. But inside, something started to change as the sun went down. They stopped near a cave for shelter. The guards made a fire, and Eli sat near the truck. Lyra was tied again. But she had hidden something under her sleeve, a sharp pin. When no one was watching, she pricked her ropes, loosening them slightly. She crawled closer to Eli and whispered fast. "I have something the warlord wants," she said. "If I give it to him, I die." Eli looked at her quietly. "What is it?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not here, not now," she whispered. "But if you help me, I'll give it to you." He didn't answer, but as he looked at her, at the bruises on her arms, the silent fire in her eyes, he knew this was no normal job, and tomorrow they would reach the palace. Tomorrow she would be gone. And maybe he would never forgive himself. That night, the mountain wind howled through the cave. But Eli did not sleep. He stared into the fire, thinking of the girl in chains, and wondered what kind of man he would be when the sun rose again. The next morning, the sky was gray. Clouds sat heavy on the mountain peaks. Hiding the sun, Eli started the truck engine, its old gears groaning in protest. Lyra sat in the back again, her wrists loosely tied with the same golden rope. The guards didn't notice the rope was now weak, nearly ready to snap. They sat close beside her, yawning. Half asleep from the cold night, the road ahead twisted like a snake through rocky cliffs. The path to the Warlord's palace was narrow, and one wrong turn could mean death. Eli drove slowly, his eyes shifting from the path to the mirror. He kept glancing at Lyra, her face calm but eyes alert. She sat quietly, but her fingers tugged gently at the ropes. She was waiting for something, for the right time. The truck bounced over a sharp bend, and suddenly the path ahead was blocked. A rock slide had fallen during the night. Huge boulders and dirt covered the road like a wall. Eli stopped the truck. Stepping out to check the damage, the guards followed, cursing under their breath. One of them ordered, "Move the rocks, now." Eli nodded and bent down to lift a stone, but his eyes flicked to the back of the truck. Lyra met his gaze. In that moment, she mouthed one word. Now, Eli turned back and kept the guards busy. Pretending to argue about the weight of the rocks, Lyra used the pin again and cut the final strand of rope. Her hands were free, but she kept them behind her back to avoid suspicion. Eli called out, "This will take hours. Maybe we go around." "No," the guard barked. "There is no way around." "Then we camp here tonight," Eli said, trying to sound annoyed. The guards grumbled and agreed. Walking back to the truck to rest, the sun began to sink behind the peaks, and cold shadows spread across the road. That night, the fire was small. One guard stood watch, while the other dozed near the truck. Eli sat beside his vehicle, staring at the stars. Lyra slipped closer to him. Pretending to stretch her legs, she leaned in, whispering fast. "You said nothing, but you helped me." Eli didn't answer, just nodded slightly. "I know a way through the forest," she whispered. "It's old and hidden. No trucks can pass, but we can," she added. Eli frowned. "The forest is dangerous, not as dangerous as Vark." Lyra replied. Her voice shook, but not from fear, from something stronger. "Hope." Eli looked at the guards, one snoring and the other half asleep. "If we run, we may not survive," he whispered. "If we don't," she said, "I will not survive." Those words sat heavy in his chest. He stood slowly, brushing off the dust. Then, without a word, he held out his hand. Lyra looked up at him, surprised, but she took it. And just like that, they ran. They moved fast. Keeping to the shadows, the forest began where the cliff ended. Full of thick trees and strange glowing plants, branches scratched their arms, roots twisted underfoot. Lyra led the way, her steps light, as if she had walked here before. Behind them, the sound of shouting filled the air. The guards had woken up, found the truck empty, and sounded the alarm. Lyra didn't stop. Eli followed close, his heart racing. In the distance, they heard the sharp cry of hunting beasts. Vark's trackers, giant creatures with wings and eyes that glowed red. "They'll smell us," Lyra said. "We need water, fast." She knew water would hide there. Sent, they stumbled down into a ravine where a stream ran through smooth stones. They crossed it, soaked to the knees, behind them. The flying beasts screamed and circled, but they kept running, never looking back. Hours passed, maybe more. The night seemed endless. Eli's legs ached, and Lyra's dress was torn, her feet bleeding. Still, they didn't stop. Finally, they reached an open space, an old crash site. Metal bones of a ship lay broken, half buried in moss. Lyra climbed inside, her fingers searching under the floor. She found a small box, old and dusty. Inside was a strange device, round and glowing faintly. Eli stepped back. "What is that?" Lyra held it close, whispering, "This is why they want me." "This is proof," she said, "of what Vark has done." The device was a memory course, something rare and dangerous. Eli didn't understand all of it. But he knew one thing: they couldn't stop now. They had no road back, only forward. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Even the wind had stopped. Lyra and Eli sat in the broken ship, hidden behind twisted metal walls. The strange memory core glowed faintly between them, pulsing like a heartbeat. Neither of them spoke. Their breaths were shallow, their clothes damp, their bodies sore. Eli looked at the sky through the broken ceiling. No stars tonight, just thick clouds and cold air. Lyra sat with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the glowing device, that memory. "Core," Eli whispered, "what's really inside it?" Lyra looked up slowly, her voice soft and flat. "Names, places, secrets," she said. "It shows what the Warlord did to prisoners, to villages, to humans." Eli's face darkened. "All recorded and locked inside this," she added. "If it reaches the right people, Vark's power ends." Eli leaned back against the cold wall. "That's why he wants you back," he muttered. Lyra nodded. "Alive if he can, dead if he must." Suddenly, a distant roar broke the silence. The sound echoed across the trees, deep, monstrous, and hungry. Lyra froze, whispering, "The beasts are back." The Warlord's hunters, creatures bred to track and kill. They could smell fear, sense movement, and fly between trees with terrible speed. Eli stood quickly, scanning the area. "We have to move," he said. "If we stay here, we die." Lyra grabbed the memory core and hid it under her torn dress. Close to her heart, together, they slipped out of the wreck and into the thick forest. The trees closed in around them, branches clawing at their arms and faces. Every step was slow, careful, silent. The only sound was the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. They avoided open ground, hiding behind trees, crawling through undergrowth. Eli led the way now, his soldier instincts returning. Silent steps, quick glances, ready hands. Lyra followed close, her breath steady. She didn't complain, didn't cry. She had learned long ago that fear must be hidden. A glow passed above them, red and shifting. One of the beasts soared through the sky, its wings cutting through the mist. Eli pulled Lyra down under a fallen log. They held their breath as the beast hovered, sniffing the air, its sharp nose twitching. Then it moved on, disappearing into the clouds. Lyra let out her breath slowly. "That was too close. We're not safe yet," Eli replied. "We need to find shelter before sunrise." He pointed toward a ridge in the distance. "There might be caves in those hills." They moved again, this time faster. Branches whipped their faces, stones bit their feet, but they kept going. Behind them, more roars echoed. The other beasts were closing in. They reached the base of the ridge just as the first light of dawn began to peek through the trees. Eli spotted a narrow path between two rocks and led Lyra up the slope. Near the top, he found a cave, small and hidden, but deep enough to hide them. They crawled inside, panting, shaking, exhausted. Inside the cave, it was cold and dark, but safe for now. Lyra sank to the floor, clutching the memory core like it was life itself. Eli sat beside her, watching the entrance. "I've smuggled cargo before," he said quietly, "but never something like this." "I'm not cargo," Lyra replied. "And I'm not a bride either." "You're a fighter," Eli said, "and that's why we're going to make it." Lyra looked at him, confused. "Why are you helping me?" She asked. "You could have taken me straight to Vark and walked away rich." Eli didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Because I've done the wrong thing before. I looked the other way, followed orders, let people suffer. But Not this time. Lyra blinked, surprised by the weight in his voice. He wasn't just a driver. He was a man carrying something heavy, something from his past. And now, maybe helping her was his way to fix it. Suddenly, a voice crackled from Eli's wrist communicator. A broken message came through, full of static. This is Human Relay Station. Respond if you're in distress. Eli tapped the device. Speaking quietly, this is Eli. I have priority cargo, human life in danger. Requesting extraction or safe passage, the signal cut off. They waited, but no reply came. Lyra's face dropped. Do you think they heard you? Maybe, Eli said, but maybe not. Still, we have to try. She nodded slowly, outside. The beasts circled, but they had not found the cave yet. Inside, 2 fugitives, 1 human. 1 alien shared silence. Fear and a growing bond. Neither of them said it out loud. But both knew there was no going back now, only forward, together. The sky was pale gray when Lyra opened her eyes. She had only slept for a few minutes, curled against the cold cave wall. Eli sat at the entrance, keeping watch, his eyes sharp. And tired, outside, the mountain wind howled through the trees, but inside the cave, there was silence, dense, heavy silence. Lyra sat up slowly, holding the memory core against her chest. Eli turned to her. We move soon, he said quietly. Before they find our scent, she nodded, then looked down at the glowing device. I didn't tell you everything, she said. Eli raised an eyebrow. Go on, this core, she whispered. It's not just proof, it also has a lock. If the right person touches it, it opens. If the wrong person doesn't, explodes. Eli blinked. Surprised, explodes. She nodded, enough to wipe a room clean. Eli looked at her differently now. So you've been carrying a bomb? Lyra's voice was calm. Only if Vark gets it, he knows what's inside. And he'll kill thousands to keep it hidden. Eli leaned back, breathing out slowly. Do you know how to open it safely? He asked. Yes, she replied. But I need a data key, and it's not here. She pulled something small from her belt, a hidden piece of metal, old and scratched. This is part of the key, she explained. The other half is at a relay station 2 valleys away. Eli frowned. We'll never make it on foot. Not with beasts in the sky. Lyra looked up, her voice steady. Then we need to steal something. Eli thought for a moment. Theirs. A trade outpost between the valleys, he said. Smugglers land there, refuel, sell weapons. It's dangerous, but we might find transport. Lyra stood up, brushing dust off her dress. I've been in chains long enough. She said, I can handle danger. They left the cave quietly, moving fast through the thin morning mist. Eli led through a narrow trail between rocks and twisted trees. Above them, the sky remained cloudy, good cover from flying scouts. By noon, they reached the edge of the outpost. It was hidden inside a crater. Surrounded by scrap walls and guard drones, Eli spotted an old human shuttle at the far end, marked with red wings. That's a smuggler ship, he whispered. Fast. And illegal. Lyra pointed at the other side. Their supply tent. They might have food and tech. They split up, moving through the crowd. Aliens of all kinds walked between stalls. Buying, selling, whispering. Lyra kept her hood up, her eyes low. Eli found a merchant and traded some credits for a datapad. He tapped into the outpost network. Searching for ship routes, Lyra found the supply tent and slipped inside. It was dark, lined with crates and broken tech. In the back, she found a small, locked boxhold. Marked with a symbol she remembered. She reached out. Placed her hidden metal piece into the box slot. A quiet click. A soft light. And the box opened. Inside was the other half of the Kia, glowing shard shaped like a leaf. She gasped quietly, then heard footsteps outside. Voices arguing. One of them loud and rough. A guard stepped in, spotting her. "Hey you, show your face." Lyra turned and ran, heart pounding. She burst through the tent flap, guards chasing behind her. Across the outpost, Eli saw her running and moved fast. He tackled one guard, knocking him into a stall. Lyra slid across the ground, dodging blaster. Fire! Eli grabbed her hand and they ran toward the smuggler ship. The pilot shouted, "You can't board that." Eli threw a credit chip. "We just did." They jumped into the ship, Lyra slamming the door button. Eli fired up the engines, dust spinning in the air. Outside, guards fired at the hull, but the ship rose fast. With a loud roar, they blasted into the sky, leaving the outpost behind. Inside the ship, Lyra held the full data key, her hands shaking. "You got it?" Eli asked. She nodded, breathing hard. "We can open the core now." He smiled slightly. "Then let's find a place to do it safely." They flew low across the valley, hidden by cloud and distance. Lyra sat beside Eli, the memory core between them. "It's more than secrets," she said. "There's a list of every prisoner he tortured, and it includes humans." Eli's jaw tightened. "I lost my brother to Vark soldiers," he whispered. "If his name is in that core, I want to see it." Lyra placed her hand on the device. "Then we'll open it together," she said. "Not as driver and cargo, but as two people fighting back." The ship flew onward, toward the relay station, and for the first time since this journey began, Lyra didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a weapon he couldn't control. The smuggler ship flew low through the clouds. Its engines rattled, old and worn, but strong enough to carry them over the valleys. Eli sat at the controls, one eye on the scanner, the other on the sky. Lyra sat beside him, gripping the memory core and the full data key tightly. Her hands were steady now, no more shaking. No more doubt. They had a plan and a destination. Ahead lay the human relay station, a small outpost built into the side of a rocky cliff. It was hidden from most flight paths, but Eli knew it from an old map. It had once served as a listening post during the war. Now it was nearly forgotten except by those who needed it. "We land, plug the core into their data lines," Eli said. "Then broadcast everything to the human embassy." Lyra nodded. "Once the data is sent, Vark won't be able to hide." Eli's voice lowered. "That's if no one interferes." The ship touched down gently on the landing pad, dust kicking into the air. The station looked empty, no movement, no guards, just silence. Eli stepped out first, his blaster ready. Lyra followed close behind, her cloak hiding the core beneath it. Inside, the halls were dim and cold. Dust floated in the air. Lights flickered. On the walls, Eli moved through the corridors carefully, checking corners. They reached the control roomette was small, filled with old Earth tech. Lyra approached the central console. Placing the memory core on the platform, she pulled out the data key, pressing it into the slot. A soft hum filled the room, followed by lights blinking to life. The screen came on, lines of alien code appeared, then shifted into English encryption. "Matched," the system said. "Broadcast ready." Lyra looked at Eli, her eyes shining with relief. "We did it," she whispered. Eli gave a small nod. "Send it." She reached for the button, but just before she pressed it, the door behind them slammed shut. A voice crackled through the speakers. "Well done, little thief," it said. Lyra froze, eyes wide. "That voice?" she whispered. "No, it can't be." The lights turned red, and a figure stepped into view behind the glass window. It was a human dressed in embassy gear, but his face wore a cruel smile. "Name's Captain Rourke," he said. "Special security detail. I've got your signal," he added, tapping his badge, and sent it straight to Vark. Eli stepped in front of Lyra, blaster raised. "You're working with the Warlord." He growled. Rourke smirked. Better. Pay than the embassy, and less paperwork. Lyra grabbed the core and backed toward the console. Why? She asked, voice shaking with anger. Rourke laughed. Because peace is boring. Because chaos feeds power. Eli fired a shot at the glass. It didn't break. The room was sealed. From above, metal panels began to slide across the exits. You'll hand me the core, Rourke said, or you both die here. Lyra looked at the console. Transmission was still ready. Eli shouted, hit it, Lyra now. She slammed her hand on the button. The console flashed. Broadcast in. Progress. Rourke's face twisted. No. Suddenly, the glass cracked just a little. Rourke turned, barking orders to unseen soldiers. Lyra reached for the core butt. It was glowing hot now. The data had been released, but the core was overloading. She pulled it close and whispered, it's going to explode. Eli grabbed her hand. We run. They bolted for the emergency exit. Eli blasted the lock and kicked the panel loose. Smoke filled the hall as the core's energy began to pulse like a heartbeat. They ran down. The back tunnels, alarms blaring behind them. A blast shook the entire station as the core detonated. The walls trembled, dust falling like rain. But they had escaped. The blast was strong, but controlled. Lyra had programmed it that way, just in case. They burst out into the open air, falling to their knees on the landing pad. Behind them, flames rose from the relay tower above them. Distant human ships appeared, real ones this time. They had received the transmission, and they were coming. A shuttle landed beside them, marked with Earth's Alliance symbols. 2 soldiers rushed out, aiming. Rifles but paused when they saw Eli's badge and Lyra's broken ropes. Are you Eli? One asked. Yes, he said, still catching his breath. And this is Lyra. She's the reason you're here. The soldiers nodded, speaking into their radios. We got them, they said. And the Warlord's secret is out. Lyra leaned against Eli's shoulder, her body trembling but alive. She had given everything. Run from chains. Escaped death, and now her voice had finally been heard. Eli placed his hand gently over hers. It's not over, he said, but you just changed the war. Lyra lay still inside the medical chamber. Her body was bruised. Her skin burned in places from the core's last energy burst, but she was breathing. Machines beeped softly around her, tracking her pulse, her healing cells. The room smelled like metal and medicine. Bright white lights glowed from the ceiling, but Eli sat in the shadows, watching her quietly. It had been 3 days since they escaped the relay station. 3 days since Lyra pressed that button and exposed the Warlord's secrets to the galaxy. Now they were aboard a human diplomatic ship, far from the forests, far from danger at least for now. The data she had sent shook the core world's war crimes, secret prisons, human test subjects' names. Dates, video evidence, it was all real, and the Warlord Vark had gone silent. Eli hadn't left Lyra's side. Not once. He sat beside her bed, hand resting near hers. He hadn't spoken much to the embassy officers. He didn't care about politics, meetings, or rewards. He only cared about the girl who saved his soul without even knowing it. On the 4th day, her eyes opened slowly, clouded at first. Then, sharp with recognition, she turned her head and saw him. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. You stayed. Eli leaned closer, smiling a little. Of course I did, he said. You saved me. Her brow wrinkled slightly, confused. I thought I was the one being saved, she said, voice dry. You were, Eli replied, and so was I. He helped her sit up slowly. Adjusting the soft blanket, Lyra looked down at her hands, her skin clean and wrapped in healing bands. The core? She asked softly. Did it work? Eli nodded. Everyone saw it. Your face, your voice, the truth's out. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. "The others," she whispered. "The ones Vark hurt, do they know they're free now?" Eli didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Some were already gone, but others were found. They're being rescued as we speak." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She just nodded, lips tight, heart full. The door opened, and a tall human woman in uniform stepped in. "Lyra of the Eastern Stars," she said. "You've been granted full asylum under Earth protection. You will not be sent back to your planet." Lyra looked at her slowly, unsure what to say. The officer continued. "You are also invited to testify before the Galactic Council. They want to hear your story in your words." Lyra turned to Eli, panic in her eyes. "I can't speak in front of them," she said. "They'll see me as weak." Eli shook his head. "No," he said. "They'll see you as the one who stood up when no one else could. Just tell the truth," he added, "like you told it to me." The officer smiled and left them alone again. Lyra sat silently for a long time, then asked, "Will you come with me?" Eli didn't even hesitate. "I'm not going anywhere else that night." Lyra walked for the first time since the explosion. Eli helped her down the corridor to a small observation deck. There, through a wide glass window, the stars stretched. Forever, Lyra stared at them in awe, her hand resting on the glass. "So many worlds," she whispered. "So many chances." Eli stepped beside her. "You're free now," he said. "You can go anywhere." She looked up at him, her voice low. "I don't want to go alone." He turned to her, meeting her eyes. "You're not alone," he said. They stood together, staring into space. Behind them, the ship hummed with quiet energy. Ahead of them, the future waited and written, but finally in their hands. The Galactic Council chamber was vast and shining. Its tall glass walls reflected starlight from every direction. Delegates from dozens of species sat around the circular room. Some had feathers, others scales, and some wore glowing robes. But all of them were silent when Lyra stepped into the center. Her steps were slow but firm, her hands no longer tied. Her head held high. Eli walked behind her, not as a guard, not as a driver, but as someone who chose to stand beside her. He said nothing, but his presence gave her strength. She could feel the weight of 100 eyes watching, waiting to hear her speak. A council speaker, a tall creature with silver skin and long fingers, raised a hand. "Lyra of the Eastern Stars," he said, "you have risked much to be here. You may speak." Lyra stepped forward and looked around the chamber. She had never seen so many powerful beings in one place, but she didn't feel small anymore. She took a deep breath and began, "I was given as a bride to a warlord," she said, her voice clear. "I was treated like a prize, not a person. I was chained, silenced, and told my life had no value." The room stayed silent. Only the soft hum of lights filled the air. "But I saw the truth," she continued. "I saw what he did to others, 2 prisoners, 2 children, 2 humans. I stole the memory core, and I ran. I escaped not with power, but with help." She turned slightly. Glancing at Eli, "A human saved me," she said, "not because he had to, but because he chose to. He gave me a voice when I had none, and today I use that voice to speak for those still in chains." The screen above her flickered, showing images from the memory core, scenes of war camps, of tortured prisoners, of secret deals and hidden crimes. Gasps filled the room as the truth unfolded. Even some council members covered their eyes. When it ended, the chamber was silent again. Then the silver-skinned speaker spoke. "Warlord Vark has broken galactic law," he said. "We will issue a warrant for his capture and seize his assets." Lyra's knees weakened, but she stayed. Standing, it was done. She had won not with weapons, but with courage. Eli stepped forward and placed his hand on her shoulder. The chamber lights dimmed, and the council session ended, that evening. They returned to the human diplomatic ship. Lyra stared out the window as stars slowly drifted past. "They believed me," she whispered. Almost in disbelief, Eli smiled. "They had too. You showed them everything." She turned to him, a soft look in her eyes. "Where will you go now?" she asked. Eli looked down, thinking for a moment. "Earth wants me to join the Diplomatic Defense Corps," he said. "Help protect others like you." Lyra's voice was quiet. "And what about me?" Eli took her hand gently. "Wherever you go," he said, "that's where I'll be." They landed on Terra Nova, a peaceful colony world on the edge of human space. Fields of golden grass stretched as far as the eye could see. Small homes stood beside lakes, and alien children played in the sun. It was a place with no chains, no warlords, no orders shouted in fear. Lyra stood on the hill and closed her eyes. The wind touched her face gently, and for the first time in her life, she felt free. Eli walked up beside her, holding a small bag. Inside was a badge, marked with a new symbol, 2 hands, one alien, one human, holding a star. "Earth Council gave this to me," he said. "They asked if I'd protect the peace out here. I said yes." He handed her something small. It was a pendant shaped like the memory core, but this one was made of crystal. "I had it made," he said, "to remind you how strong you really are." Lyra smiled, her eyes soft but bright. "I don't need to remember," she said, "because now I finally live it." She turned toward the village below, where others like her had begun to gather, aliens, humans, former captives, and quiet dreamers looking for a better life. "I used to think my life belonged to others," she said. "Now I know it belongs to me." Eli took her hand again, and together they walked down the hill. 2 souls who had been broken, now walking into something whole. Not just a new life, but a new beginning. Not just survivors, but protectors of the future.